Good morning to you all. Good morning, everybody. Um, it's 9:01 in Washington, D.C. This is your host, Arash Alai, and you're watching Capital Reports. Thank you for tuning in. It's my first live in English. I'm If you are not familiar with this channel, if you haven't been a part of this journey, we're growing very rapidly on YouTube within the past few weeks, focusing on Iran and Farsi speakers. And you probably notice a lot of them commenting. If you turn on translations, it's going to help you translate some of the uh, subtitles, some of the comments, and also this live throughout. Thank you for tuning in. Good people of Iran mostly have joined in. So if you want to make friends, if you look on the right side, you see a lot of comments. And no, that is not Arabic. That's Farsi. That's good people of Iran joining in. So if you want to make friends with Iranian people, if you want to know Iranians, if you're curious to know about what's happening in Iran and you want to hear directly from Iranian people, a lot of them join in from all over the world. I say hello and greetings to you, Durud to everybody. Thanks for joining in. Let's dive right into it. As you probably have heard, the United States has conducted a successful operation snatching the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro, from his own fortified palace. Basically, they took him out and they snatched him in Caracas. And now Nicolas Maduro is being arraigned in New York, in Southern District Court of New York. A very unique operation. For those of us who've been video gamers, if you've been a video gamer, I've been a video gamer for more than 2 decades, mostly first-person shooting games. And the type of video games that I've played, starting from Counter-Strike and then Call of Duty and Battlefield, and we obviously were very competitive playing video games, and watched a lot of demos from different clans throughout these 2 decades. And even on like Call of Duty Black Ops, which is the type of virtual game and operations that's similar to what has happened in Venezuela right now. There are clans that, when they play against other clans and then you watch their demos. I remember this clan on Counter-Strike called DBZ, Divided by Zero. They were a bunch of hackers. And these guys, I remember they were playing, I think, DDoS 2. It was a very popular map on Counter-Strike. And it was 5-on-5. Counter-Strike was 5-on-5, 5 terrorists, five counter terrorists. And then you had an operation, either had to plant a bomb or you had to rescue the terrorists. So it was 5-on-5 first-person shootings. These guys, DBZ, stormed the first throughout the first round, killed everyone, gave 0 frags. Second round, again, they gave 0 frags. And then I think the third or fourth round, the other team scored 2 frags. So they killed 2 of them. They still won the round, but they had 2 frags. And it aggravated them to a level that they went in and they just won every single round with 0 frags. And mind you, this was in the winners bracket, so they were actually competing with another winner team, and they destroyed them, just giving them 2 frags within 13 rounds. Now these are gamers who are sitting behind computers playing with mouse and computers, and these guys ended up winning a championship. Each of them won $1 million. For that championship, pretending to be special operation forces, playing a video game that is based on the reality. And this is what has happened. This is what has happened in Venezuela and how it's different from that virtuality of this. Of the game that we are all playing is that these guys are actually doing the operation. They've conducted an operation with zero frags. Americans were able to go in and snatch Nicolas Maduro without being pretty much taking a shot at them. Nobody was killed. No Americans were harmed. I don't think anyone even got injured. It's a very successful operation that is comparable to the best video games that we've ever seen played by best clans of the world. And this is the sad truth, and my take on this is that these men and women are actually the real heroes, and they have this is where the actual sacrifice is, guys, because while video gamers and clans make millions of dollars and get fames and they get trophies and they get all sorts of attention and privileges, these real men and women who have to put at least 50, 60 kilos of all sorts of equipment on their back, and they have the actual weapon, they have to aim it and do it in the real life. They getting pennies, they don't make much money, they don't get no fame. Many of them are anonymous, we will never know their names, and that's unfair. And these are the people who are fighting for all of us to have that kind of privilege, to be able to sit behind computer and play video games and have that opportunity to make money off of a game that we're playing after, which is built after them. Like, this is what they're doing in real life. They're doing it in real life, and we play video games and we make money off of it or we make fame, and they don't. So that's the real sacrifice. That's my initial take as a video gamer who also is fascinated by this story of capturing Nicolas Maduro. Um, how does this connect to other parts of the world, like in Iran? I don't know about your politics, folks. This is obviously the commander in chief, the President Trump, he has a vision for the new vision for the world. And regardless of your politics, this is a very successful operation. The mood of people in Venezuela and also in Iran, which is my home country, where I was born and raised, is one of joy. Everyone, people that I talk to, most of the people who are here, most of the Iranians who are in this life, are very happy to see Nicolas Maduro fall. And not only that, he's brought into justice. That's the important thing, is that the opportunity for the world to learn the atrocities and the criminality of these regimes once they're being put on trial, once they go to the trial and then they get exposed, their lies are exposed, their regimes are exposed, once the criminality is exposed, this is going to create a lesson for the future generation not to make the same mistakes. So that is a great opportunity. It's something that makes people in Iran hopeful, that they also witnessed that one day that the Ayatollah in Iran is not killed, but captured and brought to justice, because the atrocities, the crimes against humanity that the Islamic regime in Iran has committed throughout more than 4 decades, and not only in Iran, not only against American soldiers, not only against American interests, not only against Iranian citizens, but in Lebanon, in Israel, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. The atrocities and the criminality of this regime must be exposed. So the capture of Nicolas Maduro makes Iranian people hopeful that one day this could happen to the regime in Iran. They can also see the downfall, not only the downfall, the bringing them to justice, the fact that they should be put into trial, and they must be exposed to the world. Their lies and their criminal regime must be exposed to the world. So that's another take. The mood in Iran is hopeful. If you're following the chain of events, not more than 24 hours ago, President Trump made a very serious threat on through social to Iranian regime. And he said if the Iranian regime goes after its own people and starts shooting people on the streets, the United States would come to their rescue. And now that he snatched Nicolas Maduro, that threat, it takes that threat to another level. Now that threat is practically means within the last 24 hours, it means a lot more. The gravity of this threat is a lot more, and it is being completely noticed in Tehran. After and mind you, when I'm looking at Venezuela, and I have friends there in Venezuela, if you've lived in America long enough, you probably have come across Venezuelans. Many of them have sought refuge in the United States. They're very hardworking people. They're very hardworking people. They're good people. And most of them, most of the Venezuelans I know, and in fact, most of the Latin Americans that I know, are very sad of what has happened in Venezuela for the past 2 decades. I mean, that country has gone to trash, really. Their economy is in shambles. They've lost a lot of wealth and prosperity, and millions of them have fled the country. So people in Venezuela are happy to see the Maduro fall, the Maduro regime fall, and this also gives them an opportunity back on it. Some many of them want to, if they want to go back home. Now this is a great opportunity for them to go back and build, because the relationship between Venezuela and the United States is historic. It's a historic relationship. It extends beyond a century, more than a century of very good relationship. There's a bond between Venezuela and the United States. And a lot of these Venezuelans who live in the United States, they have the means to go back and build bridges, build relationship, and save Venezuela from the very abject poverty that is right now. Is basically the whole country is strangulated by this Maduro regime, by the brutality of them, by the sheer incompetence of the socialist regime. There's hope now. There's that sense of hope in the air for Venezuelans and also for Iranians. Iranians are also looking at this event, and they're looking at their situation in Iran, and they're comparing it to Venezuela. Venezuela's situation is very similar to that of Iran in terms of incompetence, in terms of the socialist regime, pretty much a Marxist Islamic regime in Iran, very similar bureaucracy, very similar level of corruption. And then the government spends a fortune on weapons, on military, on IRGC, on theocracy, things that has stopped, governments around the world has stopped funding for more than 2 centuries. The regime in Iran takes the Iranian people's money and spends it on foreign adventurism, while the Iranian people are poor. So they look at their situation, Iranians, this is very similar to what's happening in Venezuela. Maybe we are next. Maybe Iran is going to be next. So that gives them a lot of hope. As you can see in Washington, D.C., they're scratching their head still. The whole DC has been taken by surprise, although the writings were on the wall. Although President Trump has been saying this for about a year, although the Trump administration has actively been going after narco terrorists in southern hemisphere, they have hit more than 34 boats that allegedly has been carrying drugs for Venezuelan government, or Venezuelan government has facilitated. So they've killed more than 104 narco terrorists. Although the writings were on the wall, Washington, D.C. is still surprised. And that is because Washington, D.C. doesn't want to hear. D.C. is a city that is very bureaucratic. It doesn't really care what happens in the world. Unfortunately, that's the truth. The truth is that DC, as long as there's no real impact, imminent impact on DC, DC doesn't care and DC doesn't want to know. And now that President Trump has conducted his operation, the people in DC and think tanks are scratching their head and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. The thing with President Trump is that he has a new vision. He has a new vision for the world. This is a new vision, and Trump's vision is aligned with what is happening on the ground. So it's he's taking a lot of power out of the hands of DC bureaucrats, and they don't like it because they will be the last to know. They learn about these things through social media like you and I, and DC bureaucrats don't like that. I live in Washington, DC. As you probably know, I'm a White House correspondent, I'm a congressional reporter. I've been reporting in the city for more than 17 years. I've been walking in corridors of Congress. I've been invited to parties and after parties, and you know, talking to this group or munch or this political action group or that political action group. It's a closed circuit. It's a very closed society, um, um, and they don't like it. They don't like when they see that they're the last to know. They don't like to be treated like other people. They always want to have the privilege to jump in the middle of everything and try to manipulate or at least insert different agendas. But President Trump is taking power out of the hands of DC bureaucrats, and they don't like it a bit. They learn about what's happening through his social media posts, and then once he does them, he just goes out and briefs members of Congress after the fact that he's done this. He's doing it under the auspices of law enforcement. He's smart. If you've been watching, if you've been reading tweets and posts from Democratic senators mostly, or the Republican isolationists, they're decrying. They're like, "Oh, this is illegitimate. He can't. He was not authorized. He didn't have authorization to wage war against another country." President Trump obviously had a mandate. The attorney general, there's so many indictments against Nicolas Maduro. In fact, many of these indictments were issued during Biden administration against Nicolas Maduro. So he was a criminal. And the long hand of justice in America extends beyond its borders. So for President Trump, he doesn't believe that he needs justification or authorization from U.S. Congress. He thinks this is law enforcement. You don't get permission to execute law enforcement. So he's just gone and done it. Now, what are you going to do about it, DC? There's not much they can do. So DC bureaucrats can, you know, shout and, be sad about it or mad about it as much as they want. After all, this is a free country. This is the United States of America. People are free to express their thoughts. It's not Venezuela. It's not the Islamic Republic of Iran, for sure. People are free to express their opinions, and they're allowed to do that in the United States. But the person who conducts the opera is conducting this symphony is President Trump, and everyone's gonna play according to his tempo. So he's the one who's setting the tempo. If he was running, if it was on a treadmill, Trump is running on the treadmill with speed up to 10, while DC bureaucrats and Democrats are trying to walk on 2. They put it on level 2 and trying to catch up with President Trump. He's running so fast. He's going so fast in his own lane that they can barely catch up. So within the past 2 or 3 days, 2026 has started with a variety of news. I can't recall having had a year, having had a new year, and being bombarded with so many different news, and all of them unique and all of them hopeful. It is a very hopeful 2026 for sure. And I hope for each and all of you around the world, I wish you hope and success and prosperity. And I wish for all my Iranian friends to for a better Iran, for a hopeful Iran, for a free and democratic and secular Iran. Um, if you have been following the events in Iran, there's been an uprising in Iran for the past 6 or 7 days. People have taken up taken out to the streets of Tehran, to the streets of different cities, even tiny cities, even towns that we've never heard that there has been any demonstration or protest against the regime. For the past 6 or 7 days, they have taken out to the streets, and there's a lot of support. There's a lot of strikes. There's a lot of solidarity with the Iranian people amongst the Iranian diaspora, mostly in the United States, Canada, other countries, but they're coming together. People are coming together and chanting. Most of the chants that we're hearing in Iran are people are chanting Reza Pahlavi's name, Prince Reza Pahlavi, who is the heir to the last king of Iran, Mohammad Reza Shah. And this is the irony of history that after 47 years, um, now people are chanting his name and the dynasty of Pahlavi in Iran again. And it's not one or two videos, it's like hundreds of thousands of people chanting Pahlavi's name, either praising his grandfather, Reza Shah the Great, Reza Shah the First, who ruled Iran in early 1900s. They're either chanting his name, they're chanting like Reza Shah Ruhet Shad, like your soul maybe um, come with peace. They just chant many chants that include the name of Pahlavis. Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi also, they call his name, and also the crown prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, who resides here in the United States, not so far away from us. He lives in Potomac, Maryland, in the vicinity of Washington, D.C. area. And as you probably know, if you've been following the Iranian affairs, he's been very active. Um, Reza Pahlavi has been very active lately, as of late, because a lot of Iranians have been reaching out to him and asking him to join, basically to offer pretty much his life as a leader, to be being the leader to this movement in Iran. And we're hopeful to see that this time around, the uprising in Iran are happening in a much faster frequency. We're hopeful to see that this time the regime is weakened enough, and this operation in Venezuela brings much more hope. Um, the fact that the United States is taking back the leadership in the world again, and this is like setting an example. They're setting an example. It's not just talk. When you want to lead the world, it's not just talk. The United States is the only country who has the capability to conduct operations like this. They went in and came out without taking a single bullet at them. This must have been one of the most successful operations that have been conducted throughout the history of warfare, or law enforcement, as President Trump wants to call it. So when you want to lead the world, you have to lead by setting an example, and the United States military really did that. This is a unique time. And another issue that I'd like to touch on is the kind of technologies that the United States possesses. Because obviously, when you look at this operation in Venezuela, first of all, the fact that they only have sent a few warships, yes, it's one of the biggest armada flotillas that has been witnessed throughout the Western Hemisphere history. But it's not a huge armada. It's like 15,000 servicemen and women who have been deployed around Venezuela. So with 15,000 people, you can't really control even a city. Like 15,000 people, I don't think there has been an instance that the United States or even any country in the world has been able to successfully go and snatch some other country's leader and not even being taken a shot at. So the closest that comes to mind is 1989, 1990 in Panama, which even at that time, United States deployed more than 80,000 troops. So this time, 15,000 troops. What helped these 15,000 troops is technologies that they have. The United States military and also the United States intelligence possess types of technologies that nobody in the world has, and nobody can match them. Nobody has the capability to match them. And the type of technologies that they possess and they deploy, if you look at this operation, not being taken a shot at, they've been able to isolate the leaders of Venezuela, the generals that have been running the Venezuelan army were isolated, and they completely, their command and control completely collapsed. They were able to target each of these people separately, and then what obviously they've been able to do, which is very unique, is that CIA has been able to provide accurate information, very accurate information that is actionable information. And then the military also followed suit. And then they worked like a hand in glove. So it just fit perfectly. And so the type of technologies that the United States has, no other country has. Also, we sort of have a muted response from Venezuelan allies, mainly Russia, China, and the Islamic Republic of Iran, because they're still scratching their head, like DC bureaucrats. They're left behind. They just basically learn about these events as they happen in real time. So they've been left out completely. And this shows that how isolated many of these regimes are. They're just incapable and incompetent to communicate, even with their own so-called allies. And lastly, what I want to touch on for my American friends, for my good followers in the United States. Um, as an Iranian American, I was born in Tehran. I was born and raised in Tehran until I was 27. I was a reporter in Tehran. I reported mostly for American outlets, but I also worked with a lot of Europeans as a freelancer. But I was charged with conspiring against national security because of two reports that I did with CBS. Actually, one of them was with CBS 60 Minutes. And I went to court. I was summoned to the court of 1410 Revolutionary Court in Iran for two reports that I made for CBS. My main charge, the first charge, was conspiring against national security, and that could have got me behind bars for 25 years for one video, for a single video that I made. And I had to go to court. It was a very long process, 9 months, basically going in and out every day. Um, I survived that ordeal, and I fled to the United States. I came here as a refugee, and ever since I've also been a reporter, mostly in Farsi outlets, but I've also here and there worked with American media. What we've been witnessing in the Middle East for the past 47 years is the degradation of the Middle East, going back to a cult system that was abolished hundreds of years ago, and they just came back and they were revived, and they took Middle East down to hell. The kind of atrocities, the kind of murders that they committed in countries like Iran under the auspices of like the Sharia law, under the rule of Sharia law, and the techniques and tactics they developed, they degraded the Middle East. They brought it back 1,000 years, and many of those tactics are being copied now by narco terrorists in Latin America. If your head is not in the sand, Hezbollah, Hamas, many of these groups like ISIS, they've been communicating with each other and also with countries like Venezuela, countries like Mexico. They've been teaching these techniques to cartels. And we've been hearing about these from Mexican people, from Colombians, from Venezuelans for a long time, that these cartels are using the same tactics of torture and fear mongering, the same way as ISIS did, the same way as Hezbollah does, or the Islamic Republic Revolutionary Guard Corps do. Cutting, I don't want to get into details because I'm afraid YouTube might flag this. I'm not going to get into the details of what they do, but the kind of murders, the kind of tactics we've watched on ISIS videos, they're doing the same things in Mexico because the cartels are ruling through fear. and they employ kids as they snatch kids from different cities in Mexico, mostly boys, to do their bidding as early as 11, 12 years old. They teach them tactics. They teach them how to cut people open or torture people from very early age in Mexico. These cartels do. And who do they learn it from? They learn it from ISIS. They learn it from these terrorist organizations, especially ISIS, the way they torture and they rule nations through fear. So this is coming to our border now. These things, these that type of mentality, that type of thinking is very contagious. It is spreading through the world. It is spreading through Latin America. It has come to our shores. It has come to our borders in Mexico. And the type of things that, again, if I talk about and I watch videos about it, I'm really afraid that YouTube or other outlets, they just flag you. They just, because algorithms have no empathy. Algorithms have no empathy. So as soon as you say words or you start, to reporting about what's actually happening in Mexico and in other countries, you might get flagged. I'm not going to get into the details of that. But that ideology is contagious and it's coming to our borders. And we have a choice. We have a choice now. My choice here is to report on it. My choice is not to be silent, not to be standing on the sidewalk and just letting that happen. Whether it comes to my home in America, whether it comes to my allegiance to the flag of this country took me as a refugee. It was patient with me. It gave me opportunities. People here love me. I love them. This relationship, you got to love America to be able to survive here. It's not easy, very competitive. It's a very competitive environment. Everyone's at their best. Everyone is, on top of their game, especially in Washington, D.C. It's not easy to survive in Washington, D.C. And I love it. I've been thriving here. It's my home. And also, I come from Iranian descent. I was born and raised in Iran. So, my choice is to speak up, to be vocal. And I suggest you do the same. President Trump is also having a press conference at 11 a.m. Washington, D.C. time. That will be almost in 90 minutes. We expect to hear from him what's going to happen next for Venezuela. I'm hoping that he takes questions. I'm not going to be there in this press conference, obviously, on a Saturday. But if I was there, I would have wanted to ask him if this will have any kind of bearing or any kind of message for the Iranian regime. And again, mind you, 24 hours before this operation in Venezuela, he threatened the Iranian regime against shooting Iranian citizens, the peaceful protesters. He said the United States is going to come to your rescue. So, very hopeful to see what's going to happen next for Iran. My first live hit in English. Thank you so much for being with me with Capital Reports today. It's 9:34 in Washington, D.C. It's been over a half hour. It's been going well. Thank you for joining in. And usually during my live feed, I take questions at the end of the live. So if you have any questions in English, if you're from the diaspora, if you're curious to know what's happening in Iran, how it relates, how this operation that the United States just conducted affects Iran, please ask questions, and I'll be happy to do my best. So, Arash, what are the Democrat think tanks thinking right now on the whole Iran ordeal? Is there a unified voice of policy? Brits are certainly not amused by regime change. They've very well installed. Great question. Thank you so much for this question. So here's my analogy. the United States was born. The United States was formed by fighting the old colonial powers, and of course, the Great Britain being the biggest of them all. The United States actually broke away. Was one of the colonies. It broke away. So United States was the idea of United States was formed fighting old colonial powers, and the stronger the United States is, the more unnerved these European colonial powers are. All of them. It's not only the Britain, it's France, it's also Germany, Russia, all these old colonial powers. They envy the United States and they're not happy to see the United States growing stronger. The fact is that even for the Democrats, because they have a constituency of Latins in the United States, and this is how power works in the United States. In order for you to have any kind of legitimacy in the political spectrum, you need to have people voting for you. You need to have constituents who have plights, and they come approach you with their plights. And then basically, how you rule is by forming coalitions. There is a very strong Latin coalition in the United States. Obviously, very historic relationship between Latin America and the United States extends beyond a century, more and more. And these they have pretty much a united front when it comes to fighting socialism. The kind of Latin Americans who have fled and came here to the United States are mostly capitalists who couldn't survive the socialist rule in Latin America. So they came here because of the opportunities, and also to be away from that ideology of socialism, Marxism. They fled Marxism. So they're generally happy to see what's happening in Venezuela, the Latin Americans who live in the United States. And these are the constituents of many of these Democrats as well. So even for the Democrats, they're threading the needle. Although they hate to see President Trump win. They do anything. Democrats, they do anything to take away a win from President Donald Trump. Although they hate President Donald Trump, because of the fact that they have constituents who are Latin, they're kind of threading the needle. There's not much pressure that they can put on President Trump on this one, because it would have ramifications for them that extends beyond just a political act. So they say, what do you have to say about the leftists in America that are silent? If you've been watching, if you've been following Capitol reports, I've been criticizing the left, especially after the latest uprising in Iran. Like, I have friends in Washington, D.C., who spend hours talking about Gaza and what's happening in Gaza, and putting pressure on Israel, and some of them rightfully so. I mean, many of us are not happy to see things that are happening in Gaza or also in Israel. But the fact of the matter is that when these things, the same atrocities, take place in Iran, the left is silent because they kind of have a relationship developed with these Islamic groups, and then they go basically on an estate that is just comparing apples and oranges. So the left has been out of touch. They were hopeful after the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, the framework that President Barack Hussein Obama developed, that would survive. They were really unnerved, mad at Trump when he pulled out of the Iran deal. So they take it with a grain of political salt, if you will, and they're threading I think, on a wrong side of history. I think they're on the wrong side of the history. Only history has to prove it. I question if possibly asked the director. I understand. So this is basically I have my own YouTube channel, folks, because I wanted to communicate my own thoughts, my own line of thoughts. The fact that this technology exists, an American company like YouTube, the fact that they brought this technology so that we can connect to you directly. Not only them, but like other American innovative companies, social media companies, Meta, be it Meta, or other companies like, I don't know, TikTok, which is Chinese. The fact that we can communicate with you directly is magic. And I've been in this business for TV business for 20 years now. So that's why I chose to talk to you directly. It gives me the opportunity to also get a sense of what's happening in Iran, get your pulse. So please feel free to comment, send your comments. I learn a lot from your comments. I learn a lot. Please keep them coming. I really want to know your thoughts, your line of thoughts. Um, in light of the developments in Iran over the past 4 days and recent U.S. policy statements, which of Iran's neighboring countries have influenced it prevent or slow regime change in Iran? Great question. Well, you have to put yourself in those countries' shoes. So when it comes to ruling, when it comes to politics, you have to be practical. Any country, they have to put their own country's interest first. That's what President Trump is doing. America first. That only makes sense. It's common sense. Put your interest first. Also, I think it was the great George Washington who said, countries have no friends, they only have interests. Or I think it was Henry Kissinger, maybe. Anyhow, famous saying. So those countries, they have their own interest. And the regime in Iran really satisfies their interests, mainly Qatar. So Qatar is, I think, there's no country like Qatar that benefits from an incompetent regime in Iran, like in real dollar amounts, because is has Qatar shares the largest gas reserve in the world with Iran. So there's this huge deposit of gas under Persian Gulf that is shared between Qatar and Iran. And because of the incompetence of the Iranian regime, because of the brain drain in Iran, because of the fact that the regime in Iran is isolated, is sanctioned, and it's also not that knowledgeable. They haven't been able to develop any technologies. It all comes down to knowledge. It all comes down to technology. The regime is incapable of basically taking advantage of that natural gas reserve, while at the same time Qataris on the other side have multi-billion dollar contracts with the French companies and American companies, and they're extracting all of that gas away. So as long as the regime in Iran is isolated and sanctioned, Qataris are making billions of dollars. Qatar has probably made north of $300 billion from that oil and gas reserve, while Iran has been able to make maybe 10 or 20 billion, like not even a tenth of it. So Qatar directly benefits from having an incompetent regime in Iran, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran. Qatar does not want to see Iran prosper because that really diminishes their money reserve. Basically, this is how they make money. They make hundreds of billions of dollars. If they have an Iranian, if they are faced with a free Iran, they will lose that opportunity altogether. American companies would come to Iran. It will be easy for Iran to extract from the same gas and oil reserve. Iran would be starting making a lot of money from that reserve. And if you watched videos of the oil reserve, like I've watched some of these Iranian engineers, they go on a boat to some of these oil rigs on Persian Gulf, and you could see like there's basically on it's the border. You could see on the other side gigantic oil rigs built by the French and American companies for Qatar, and on this side, this decaying oil rig, 50, 60-year-old, built during the Shah of Iran mostly. Iran is unable to extract any gas from it. So Qatar is the main culprit when it comes to helping the Iranian regime survive. Qatar is the main culprit. Um, I am so honored to have all of you joining me here on my very first live in English on Capital Report. It's been over 45 minutes. I'm very pleased. I'm very honored. Thank you very much for joining in. Please do comment, do share, do like and subscribe, do support Capital Report. It means a lot to me. I hope to see you again. I'm trying to make a habit of coming back, not every day, but every other day, and do a live feed in English. It really depends on your response. If I see an overwhelming response from my followers and friends, I would come more often. If not, mostly this channel is for Iranian people inside the country. I don't have much time. Between my day job of being a TV correspondent, being at the White House, congressional reporter, and then all of those responsibilities, and this wouldn't be able to find much time, but as much as I can find time, I'll be happy to come by and report on Iran, give hope to Iranian people. I want them to know that they're not forgotten. People inside Iran are not forgotten. When you're in Iran, it's a bad feeling. You think the whole world has forgotten about you. And I've been there. I've been in Iran. I've been persecuted. I've gone through that ordeal once. It's a very lonely feeling. I don't want them to feel lonely. I do this video because I want to connect to them and say, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you so much. I'll hope I see you again soon.